All right, welcome to the show, y'all. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I got a great one for you today. So we're going to be talking about Senator Tommy Tuberville today. By the way his name is actually pronounced is Tuberville. That's what I've heard, but I refuse to stop calling him Tuberville because Tuberville sounds a hell of a lot funnier. So he decided to open his mouth and shove his foot directly in it because he cannot answer a question on white nationalists correctly. This is now a theme with him. It's happened a number of times where it's softball right down the center of the plate, and he swings and misses. So we'll talk about that in just a second. We also have Mark Zuckerberg versus Elon Musk heats up, and it's gotten to the point where it's beyond pathetic and super embarrassing. Jordan Peterson has some thoughts for us on socialist intellectuals. There's now more anti-gay discrimination coming out of certain businesses immediately after the Supreme Court decision to allow certain kinds of discrimination against gay people or the LGBTQ community. And also, Alex Jones absolutely positively loses his mind on air, and Bank of America is caught in a massive, massive fraudulent scheme. That's some really serious news for everybody today. All right, so without further ado, let's jump into it. You guys know the drill with the shameless plugs. Everybody click like, click subscribe. Make sure you click that bell icon so you get a notification every single time a video drops. I deeply, deeply, deeply appreciate it. And remember, you can always support the show on Patreon. Link below. All right, so Senator Tommy Tuberville, who, as I just said, the way his name is pronounced is actually Tuberville, but I refuse to call him anything other than Tuberville because it makes me giggle. This guy, man, he is something special. I do not know what's going on inside of that brain of his. I think there's inside his head, I think there's a hamster running around on one of those spinning wheel thingies because he just whiffs the easiest question of all time that he's now been getting for months. So he was asked a similar question to this months ago about white nationalists, and his response was, white nationalists? Bro, white nationalists are they're Americans and stuff, and they're not, racist. Would you even say that they're racist and stuff, bro? All right, so I'm going to play this clip for you. You're going to see the old clip, and then you're going to see the new way he fumbles the question. Watch this.
Policy that you've chosen to take up. But speaking of the military, I do want to give you a chance to clarify some comments you made recently on white nationalists serving in the military. For those who are watching, if they haven't heard your remarks, this is what you said.
Do you believe they should allow white nationalists in the military?
Well, they call them that. I call them Americans.
Do you want to explain those comments, Senator?
Yeah, first of all, I'm totally against any type of racism, okay? I was a football coach for 40 years, and...
That's not a good argument, man. I'm totally against any kind of racism. I've had minorities do athletic events in my proximity all the time. Oh, my God, man. Oh, come on. Tommy, what are you doing? What are you doing? All right, it gets worse.
And had opportunity to be around more minorities than anybody up here on this hill. But when our military was being attacked after 9/11, after January the 6th, and that was my first day on the Senate floor, I thought it was outrageous of what senators from the Democratic side, Chuck Schumer said on the floor that night, calling people racist, calling people nationalists, white nationalists. White nationalists is just another word that they want to use other than racism.
Okay, but you have to admit it's kind of fair after January 6th to look at some of the protesters and rioters and say, hey man, some of these guys are racist. I mean, some of them were literally part of racist groups. If it's not fair in that context to say some of these people are white nationalists, then when is it fair? Are you just supposed to pretend that the whole concept and the idea of white nationalism doesn't exist? Because that wouldn't be accurate. That wouldn't be fair. That wouldn't be real. So if there's ever a time where it's sort of merited, it's when you actually see some white nationalists doing a violent riot and you go, hey, we condemn white nationalism, and you get triggered over that?
I'm totally against anything to do with racism. But the thing about being a white nationalist is just a cover word for the Democrats now where they can use it to try to make people mad across the country, identity politics. I'm totally against that. But I'm for the American people. I'm for military. I'm for Christian conservatives, Democrats, whoever wants to be in the military to fight for this country, to protect this country. That's what it's all about.
But just to be clear, you agree that white nationalists should not be serving in the U.S. military. Is that what you're saying?
If people think that a white nationalist is a racist, I agree with that. I agree.
A white nationalist is someone who believes that the white race is superior to other races.
Well, that's some people's opinion.
He literally might not know what a white nationalist is. Now, listen, like I said, in May, he had a similar scandal. Some people may call them white nationalists. I call them Americans. So you would think that at some point between then and now, he would do a Google search as to what the definition of a white nationalist is. But he seems to be totally unaware of what it is. That being a white nationalist, like, you are definitionally racist. You're saying, I want to create sort of like apartheid South Africa, an apartheid-like system. At best, by the way. I mean, some people want to just, like, literally kick out minorities from the country, full stop. Or some people want the power structures to be just white, like a white identity-based country. That is, by definition, racist. There's no, like, non-racist version of white nationalism. And the funny thing is, I think he would understand that if you brought up black nationalism. If you brought up black nationalism or a black supremacist or something like that, I think he would be like, well, that's racist. But when it's white nationalist, does he sincerely believe that white nationalism just means somebody who happens to be white who is a nationalist? Because that's how he's talking right now. But I find it so hard to believe that he doesn't realize what he's saying, right? I mean, it's possible. The arguments are either he knows what he's saying and he's playing hide the ball with his racism power level, or he is a absolute blithering idiot. You guys tell me which one you think is accurate.
If people think that a white nationalist is a racist, I agree with that. I agree they
A white
shouldn't.
nationalist is someone who believes that the white race is superior to other races.
Well, that's some people's opinion. And I don't think,
That's
I mean,
not an opinion.
Pardon?
What's your opinion?
My opinion of a white nationalist, if somebody wants to call him white nationalist, to me is an American. It's an American. Now, if that white nationalist is a racist, I'm totally against anything that they want to do.
Guys, he might literally not know what a white nationalist is. He might think it's a white person and a nationalist. Somebody who's a nationalist who happens to be white. But, bro, you're a U.S. senator. This is like politics 101 type stuff. It's like basic definition types. What? Jesus Christ. This is crazy.
110% against racism. But I want somebody that's in our military, that's strong, that believes in this country, that's an American, that will fight along anybody, whether it's a man or woman, black or white, red, it doesn't make any difference. And so I'm totally against identity politics. I think it's ruining this country, and I think that Democrats ought to be ashamed for how they're doing this.
Look at his assumption there. He keeps bringing up identity politics, identity politics, identity politics, and he's blaming Democrats for playing identity politics. But these people who you're tiptoeing around condemning, the white nationalists, they're playing identity politics too, and they're playing a worse version of identity politics. Like, guys, identity politics is not just you're part of a minority community and you care about the issues pertinent to that community. It's not just like black people or people of color in general who are playing identity politics or Democrats playing identity politics. Trump's movement was in part based on identity. I mean, he very famously went after Muslims. We need a total and complete shutdown of Muslims coming into this country until we can figure out what the hell is going on. In his launch speech, he very famously said, the Mexicans, they're criminals, they're rapists. I assume some are good people. So that is a white identity politics approach. White nationalists are by definition white identitarians. It is sectarianism in a pro-white sense. And anti-black and anti-all different kinds of people of color. So, like, if you want to condemn identity politics, fine, no problem whatsoever. But you can't, at the same time you're condemning Democrat identity politics, do this weird defense of white identity politics, which he just assumes is, like, the default. That if you're doing white identity politics, it must be in backlash to the Democrats who are doing the identity politics. No, you could also just do your own version of identity politics on the right. You could do your own white identity politics. It doesn't have to be a backlash to Democratic identity politics. Oh my God, this is crazy.
A man or woman, black or white, red, it doesn't make any difference. And so I'm totally against identity politics. I think it's ruining this country, and I think that Democrats ought to be ashamed for how they're doing this because it's dividing this country and it's making this country weaker every day.
But that's not identity politics. You said a white nationalist is an American.
It is identity politics.
You said a white nationalist is an American, but a white nationalist is someone who believes horrific things. Do you really think that's someone who should be serving in the military?
Well, that's just a name that it's been given. I mean,
it's not.
Listen,
It's a real definition. There's real concerns
so if
about
you're going to do away
extremism.
with most white people in this country out of the military, we got huge problems.
He literally might not know what a white nationalist is. He seems to think a white nationalist is somebody who happens to be white who is a nationalist. He's really dumb, man. Look, I have to say, the more he talks, the more I fall on the side of the argument that this isn't like he's, he knows what he's saying, but he's like being obfuscating and deflecting on purpose to hide his racism power level. No, the more he talks, the more I think this idiot doesn't even know what a white nationalist is, even after the scandal in May where he was called out for a similar comment. That's why he said, like, they go after white nationalists, and let me tell you, when I hear white nationalist, I think an American. I think a Trump supporter. And everybody interpreted that as, oh my God, he's defending, like, white nationalism and white nationalists. But the more he talks, the more it seems to be, he literally thinks a nationalist is somebody, a white nationalist is somebody who is a nationalist who happens to be white. Oh my God. Guys, I got to be honest with you. I don't know which is sadder. The fact that he's this ignorant and idiotic, or if it was like he was in just avowed racist who was hiding his power level and knows what he's saying, but is like, playing this tap dance game. This may be sadder than that.
Well, that's just a name that it's been given. I mean,
it's not. It's a real definition. There's real concerns about
extremism. So if you're going to do away
extremism.
with most white people in this country out of the military, we got huge problems.
It's not. It's not people who are white. It's white nationalists
that have a few probably
You see the
different
distinction,
beliefs.
Right?
That have different beliefs. Now, if racism is one of those beliefs, I'm totally against it. I am totally against racism.
But
there's a lot of people that
a
believe
white
in different
nationalist
things.
is racist, Senator.
Well, that's your opinion.
Oh my God, there it is. There it is. He doesn't know what it is. He literally doesn't know what it is. It would have been interesting if this entire conversation, instead of using the term white nationalist, which gets him defensive because of what he interprets it as, if this whole conversation was based off, like, if you just said Nazi, if you just said, are you okay with Nazis serving in the U.S. military? I wonder what he would have said in that scenario. I'm very curious. Like, would he do the same? Like, well, you say Nazi, I think of an American. Like, I don't know, man. That would be a little extreme even for him. Or if you want to softball it a little bit, you think Nazi is, like, too strong and he would immediately back off that. Just fascist, right? Well, are you okay with fascists serving in the military? It would be very, very interesting to hear his response to that. Would it be the same thing? You say fascist, I say American. You say fascist, I say Trump supporter. Because, look, I would imagine, even though he clearly doesn't know what a white nationalist is, I would imagine, he knows what a Nazi is. And he will have a better idea of what a fascist is compared to his understanding of what a white nationalist is. But that he might whiff on the definition, right? So it would be interesting. It would be interesting. But for sure, if you said, should we allow communists into the military or whatever, or like tankies or Stalin apologists, he wouldn't know what a tanky is. He probably doesn't even know who Stalin is, right? But if you said that and he knew who it was, he'd be like, no, I'm against them. But man, this is, God. Tommy Tuberville. Jesus, might want to get your tube checked. This didn't go over well, let's say. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.